Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World. So weird. I was there. Now I'm here.
I know.
It's like
Part of me was like, oh, you should have at least stayed and we could have done one together, but next time.
Next time. Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I should just be able to reach through like this,
Oh, right.
into your room. Anyway, so we talked this weekend about anomalies around the earth, right?
Yep.
Subtle ones as much as not subtle ones. There's a lot going on. There's been so many things in terms of volcanoes erupting that haven't erupted. Like I did hear that there was one that just erupted.
And wasn't it an undersea one?
I think so.
Yeah. I don't recall where it was, but it was an undersea one.
That was unexpected. And so there's that, it was interesting getting feedback from a Soul Tribe member that we were talking to this weekend about, interesting differences at Mount Shasta, which is, one of the Earth's chakras. And I did not have time in flying back from Dallas yesterday to do the research on other ones, but it's subtle because I don't know that people are talking about these things like in the news, because these are subtle experiences people are having at these places where energy things have changed, or small like physical things have changed in the environment, like flowing waters drying up and stuff like that. Yeah,
right. And I saw a special on Iceland and how it's melting and how they're putting together. And I mean, they even went underneath one of the, in ice caves to see the tubes that the melting water is creating. And it's impressive. The pictures of it receding back. And then they kayaked in another place where it was full of where glaciers end up as they're dying. And, it was just so sad and, all this kind of stuff. And last night in my sleep, which I think gets to where we're going with this whole thing, is what if the earth had always been green all over and it started cooling and we started getting ice caps? And imagine if we were there then like we are now, and it's like, oh my God, can you believe everything's freezing to death, and how horrible it is, and vegetation, and we can't just leave this barren, and look at all the wildlife that has no habitat now, just like we're saying in this particular case.
Right. And it's looking at, yes, because that's how the conversation tends to go. It's like, oh, isn't that horrible? This has changed. Well, and look at how bad we are as people that we've done this and all that kind of stuff. And it's not that it's not all been an interrelated thing, because it absolutely has, right? We have definitely sped things up and whatever. However, the only constant in this multiverse of duality is change, because that's how we created this multiverse, is the perception of things changing and moving constantly, right? Propulsion from one thing to another. So we're creating catalysts of change, right? And we've decided it's our job at this level to decide whether it's good or bad.
Right.
So then it's like, well, all right, not that it's good to have, seas of plastic in the ocean and stuff like that.
Right.
It doesn't feed us in any way, but maybe it
not in this small picture.
Right. But maybe it actually serves to speed up getting to some place of catalytic importance that we wouldn't have otherwise. Right. And maybe it is a matter of awareness, a matter of kicking ourselves in the butt, right? Because we've gotten lazy or slack, or not even, like, those are all terms of judgment, right? But it's like, maybe we've just enjoyed it so much we didn't want to change it.
Right. Or we've gotten to a place where we love where we are so much that we're not going to change our consciousness in a way to enable the shift with grace and ease.
Yeah.
And that by continuing down the path we're going, that we are forcing Gaia into being the one who stays the path and makes the shift.
Right.
And we're here with her.
Right. And yet we have no right to complain.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
And it's like, we personify in a way of, oh, well, Gaia is angry. And it's like, no, things are simply changing as planned. We have planned them to change. How we get there is what those little details are on how we push against ourselves, how we propel ourselves, how we repulse. So then when we look at things like, like a spring drying up, that has never dried up in any, conscious memory, right? That's fed an entire area and everything else, right? It's then everybody gets sad about it and everything else. It's like, except it's just maybe time to change it. And there goes our attachment to, oh, well, of course we find it beautiful and whatever, and soothing to us, right? And it's
in where we are.
And where we are, right? And maybe Gaia is, as a whole, which is a collective consciousness of us. Like we are that. So it's not like us and Gaia. It is, and it's not like us or Gaia. It's both of us together. It's all of us as part of the same. It's like saying that, the cells in my shoulder are not part of the cells in my leg, right?
Right.
They're all part of the same body, right? So that if they sat there and said, well, that would be Angela's consciousness, but not us.
Right.
It's the same difference.
Well, and I had a busy night last night. Another thing is I sat, it was, I guess, around 3:30 this morning, listening and feeling my dog sit and lick and lick and lick and lick and lick and scratch and lick his paws and everything. And it's like, yes, it's ragweed season, and yes, and yes, and yes. And I finally just laid my hand on him and I said, okay, whatever it is that he believes he's missing cellularly to be able to not be irritated by this, let him find that within the universe and just allow him to draw it in. And I mean, within like 45 seconds, he just went to sleep. And I'm like, yes.
Nice.
I'm like, okay. So I sat there and when you're laying there at 3:30 in the morning, it's like, oh, this leg kind of hurts, and oh, this shoulder. I started getting that discomfort, and I was like, okay, so why can I not do the same thing? Whatever it is that's causing discomfort in that area of my body. And so I turned it into a thing versus having to take everything in through my mouth, allow each cell to have their own mouth and to attract what they needed. And I just felt like that kind of fell hand in hand with what we're talking about here is the changes that I see physically. Why do I have to assume they're bad?
Yeah.
It's shifting my perspective away from, I have to do something. I have to do this, or well, how about I just allow?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny. I forgot about this when you said that. I had a thing on the plane coming home yesterday, and this is just so it was really crazy funny, right? So I was sitting there playing Yahtzee on my phone, right? It wasn't that long of a flight. That the Wi-Fi was wiggy on the flight, so I was like, well, whatever,
Right.
So I was playing Yahtzee on my phone, and it was like sort of like I just couldn't get anything to roll right and everything else, right? So at one point I said, wait a second, I'm the one, because then you start thinking, oh, well, the dice are cold. I'm like, I'm the one that created this game. I'm the one that creates the odds. I'm the one that creates everything,
The
right?
results
The
that I
results.
roll every
So I'm
time.
going out there. I'm going to be the one. I'm gonna be like, okay, and I'm just going to play with this. All right, fine. Then let it be all winning, right?
Right. Right.
So and then I like literally let it go. So it took one other game, like one more game, right?
To
And then
think
I
about.
am not kidding you. In one game, I got like 7 Yahtzees in a row. Right. So I start chuckling to myself. And then I'm like, why do we not remember this? And I'm like,
Right.
but then here's the thing. Then I started paying attention to what was in my mind going, oh, well, that's just not any fun though.
Right. Right.
If it's that easy. And I'm like, oh, hush, no, it is not. Absolutely. Because I'm like, well, then we can do that with anything. We could do that with money, with winning the lottery,
Right.
with anything we want. And we do have those little whispers that go, oh, that's no fun.
Yeah. Well, or even what's the game in that?
The game in that, right?
And it's like, the higher the high is based on the lower low, which
Yeah.
gives you that whoa,
The roller
whoa.
coasters that we love so much.
Right.
Good morning, Michael. Yeah. So it's interesting on that respect, right? So it's like, so how do we connect that together? Because it's like that's very similar energy what you're talking about, what I'm talking about. Because it was funny when you were talking about that, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot all about that by the time I even got off the plane.
Right. Well, I just think that we automatically judge the majority of things as bad just because they're different. It's
Right.
like, oh, well, it's getting old, or, oh, well, it's like I stayed up too late, or I did this, or I did that. And it's like, but if I were attuned and practicing my self-responsibility and my creative abilities, this all would just flow, and I
Right.
would be allowing. And I think as we observe Mother Nature doing that, I think it really shifts things.
Michael says it's like our souls have a craving for obstacles, not just a craving, but an addiction. Like,
Right, right,
because,
right,
because, you know, when I tap into this energy collectively, right? It's like we are pushing ourselves to the last minute. We are pushing ourselves to delay our what we do or be or do to shift to the
right.
last minute. And it's like collectively when I feel into that, it's, oh, the bigger the obstacle, the better, the more exciting it will be, right? It'll
Right.
be, it'll be like Endgame and the Avengers, it's like, and we laugh, but that's what you're right, Michael. That's what we crave
Yeah.
because we
Well,
are so,
it's like the game of games. I
it
mean, it
is.
is the epitome of what this is about.
Right.
It
So it's the drama, that's the whole addiction to the drama. And so like we were talking about, was it last week with the agitation in the cells, right? Right before they change form, right? It's like we have so much agitation. So then we're like, oh, we're getting ready to pop. We're getting ready to pop. We better build some big freaking mountains so we can just, soar over them. So we can say, look at what we just did. That's what we're doing. And so, yeah, we do have that kind of stuff. And yet we know at some level that we can overcome anything, right? Because we
Right,
create it.
right.
And then it's like,
And
well, how far can we?
the more we forget, the better the game.
Right. And so then we're going, well, how do we do this? If we're in remembrance, how do we have the game of forgetfulness at the same time? Because that's what we have so much fun with.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so when we look at stuff and we look at stuff, so then God, we have at the collective level, which we could call Gaia, right? Or Shekinah, not Shekinah, because I'm thinking of Earth. What's the one from South America? I can't think.
Pachamama.
Pachamama. That's it. Yeah.
Pachamama.
Or Pachamama, or like however you want to call it, Earth Mother, so to speak.
Right.
We want to pretend that, like we want to sit there at this individual level and create all these obstacles for ourselves so that we have the big monster, epic battle at the end or whatever. When at the same time, our at the collective level, no, we set it on autopilot, on full steam ahead.
Right.
So, and that's part of what we're saying. Okay, well, while it's moving ahead, we could put this obstacle in and we could put this obstacle in, and then it'll be this
Right.
huge explosion and it'll be catastrophic. And so, like, so much suffering. And oh my God, how awesome is that?
Right. Michael says the theory out there that the soul got bored in the existence of love, so they came to the earth plane to gain excitement from obstacle.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we created in this level of density and separation and forgetfulness is.
Well, and not only the excitement from the obstacle, but the excitement in creating the obstacle.
And experiencing it. Yeah.
And then forgetting and then experiencing.
Yeah.
It's like a double thing.
Yeah. And so, when we look at stuff that affects us as collectives, right? Or we see things that are shifting, it's like, okay, it's almost like at the collective level that we can personify as Gaia or whatever. It's okay, all these little pieces of me, all my little cells, go and play. Go do your little play thing.
Right.
At the end of the day, I'm going to keep the game rolling. And it's however you choose to have it go, right? Because that's the whole thing, is that's what we are so afraid of in nature, is that nature continues on whether we do or not.
Absolutely. It marches on.
And so, like, that perception, but that's where we have this idea that we're separate from it, right?
Right. Right.
Instead of saying, avalanches, I'm just looking at a picture of mountains over and a calendar over my desk here. Avalanches and volcanoes and earthquakes and hurricanes and tornadoes and right? Tsunamis, rogue waves, the ocean itself, the power of the water, and the power of the air, like all that kind of stuff. We are fearful and in deep respect of it because we feel so minimized by it, instead of saying, well, it's part of us. Like, we're part of that. I am the wind, I am the tsunami, I am the fire, I am the volcano and the earth shaking and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like the whole thing about playing the Yahtzee games, like, I am the creator, like, of probability. I am the creator of
chance. Yeah, the whole
chance.
thing.
And I can create it however I choose.
Right.
And I have never ever gotten 7 Yahtzees in a row. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I definitely have never done that.
So, because I was like, okay, and that was the whole thing. Because my mind's like, okay, fine. Well, all right, haha. Well, all right, if that's the case, well, then I'll do another one. And it was like 7 in a row until I just couldn't say no anymore. Okay. All right. Yep. I concede. I've created this. I create all my obstacles. I create anything that is not exactly what I think I want, because it really is not exactly what I think I want, or else I would just create it.
Yep.
So it ties into, like, but we do have, so we sit there and we mourn. What we say is we mourn what's going on. And it changes, and we put a blame on ourselves at how bad at people we are, and what we've done to desecrate, these lands and stuff like that. And it's like, well, we've just chosen to play the game in a way that is in separation and denial, right? So is that bad? It just, no, because outside of these bodies, we think it is the most freaking awesome amusement park ever.
Right. Right. And I mean, if you look at the bigger picture and try to, simplify it, boil it down, as we knew that this was the way it was going to unfold. So we knew that we had to put dinosaurs here first to roam the earth and then die and then get buried and make the oil. Then we could come and use the oil to pollute the world.
Right.
To create the warming.
Well, and I mean, and
Yeah.
before the dinosaurs, there were other iterations of things that we've done that we just don't remember or haven't
Right,
found
right,
evidence
right,
to yet, right?
right.
Or we're just starting to. And it's pretty, yeah. Well, just yeah, everything in the way that we created the elements, how the elements separated and became complementary and integrated to each other, right?
Right.
Um, and if anything gets out of balance, one will take over the other one, right? So it's like, and I remember, oh, it was the year you did come to Shasta with me. Was when we had that discussion up at the Meadows with the Native American.
Right. Was that 17?
Probably, I don't know, sometime in the past. It was the one year you weren't there. 'Cause I
The
remember
one
telling
time
you
I
about
didn't
it.
go, right.
And we were talking, and that was when I'm having this debate with this woman who was Native American, of Native American heritage and part of the tribe there or whatever, that overlooked the springs. And I said, because she's like, oh, well, Gaia is angry, and there was something about the fires coming, like it was just like all about the anger. And I'm like, I see fire as cleansing. I don't see it as anger.
Purifying. Right.
Purifying. And water, same thing, flooding and whatever. And well, the water's drying up, and they did say that, and it was like, except something's gotten out of balance then, right? And yes,
Right.
have we done that? Yes, but it's also out of balance. Everybody blaming each other to put the burden of blame on one group of people, or to shrug it off. And it's like, not blame. Oh, which of course, in doing, here's our shameless plug, our shadow course this month. But
Right.
because I last week doing the blame and praise,
Right.
I had those two in doing those videos. Blame is simply, it's externalizing what we have inside of ourselves. It's externalizing judgment that we have on ourselves, knowing that we're the creators of our reality and whatever, but we don't want to look at it because of judgment. So then we put an arrow out to blame others, right? And
Right.
so we put so much energy on it because it's more comfortable to the ego than not looking at the mirror. So we can blame anybody we want about earth stuff. We can blame, it's so funny. I hear people say, oh, it's Mother Nature and menopause. It's like, oh, stop. It's just,
Oh my God.
it is just Earth being Earth.
Right.
Michael says, is blaming equivalent to complaining? Energy wise, yeah. In many cases, it's not exactly the same thing, but yeah, well, it is. Well, yeah, it is. Honestly, if thinking about complaining about, oh, well, if people would do this, that's blame, right?
Right.
If things were just like this, well, you could say that without blaming, but it's all of this stuff, and it's in the same energy though, right? So it's all externalization into saying, oh, well, those people did this, or people did this, or this ethnic group that did this, or they came in and took over the lands and they did this, or or we raped the lands, we did it, like all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And so then we sit there and go, well, that's why all this stuff is happening, versus, well, what if we hadn't done all that stuff and that stuff was happening anyway?
Exactly. But we'll never know because you can't back it up.
Yeah, like you're saying, like, what if we were here and the world was all green, and then all of a sudden we started seeing the snow and the ice, and we're like, oh,
What have we done?
what have we done?
What have we done? Right. And just think of all the habitats that are being ruined, and this desolation, and the killing freezing and the deadly ice. I mean, now it's like, oh, this beautiful ice, and mourning the loss of the ice shelf, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, it's just how you spin it.
Yes. And so we sit there and then we get all concerned and put all this energy to, oh, well, this sacred site is, getting desecrated, or da, da, da. And so like when we tapped into that over the weekend, as soon as I did,
Yeah.
all I felt was I didn't feel anything except for a pause.
Right. That everything was as it should be.
And that the pause was a shift. It was that, like, and we've talked about this in the past, but it's like this was a really big, it's almost like the pauses are getting bigger
Right.
and more prominent. And it's like, I used to say it's like when you shift gears in a manual car, right? It's in between gears, right? When you
Got the clutch in.
got the clutch in, right? And you take it out of gear to put it in another one. That's where, so I felt that in bigger and bigger ways. And when I connected into that this weekend, it was, oh yeah, like that feels like a big Gaia shift, like,
Right.
like we're just changing gears. And it feels like it is the beginning of a big accelerated change, which a lot of us roll our eyes at going, oh my God, because this year's been
Bigger.
breathless
Right.
and bigger and more intense and crazy. But that's all I felt was, it was like the breath before the exhale, right? The moving
Right.
forward, the movement.
Right. And, you know, along all these same lines, I've often questioned whether all these animals that are going into extinction are, and this kind of plays well with the shadow plug, is those going into extinction are actually moving to the next iteration of Earth, and they're already there populating it and whatever. And here we are going, no, don't go, don't
Yeah.
go. So
Well,
which is which is the shadow side wanting them to stay here and suffer with us?
yeah. No. Stay in this density, right? Stay.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. I see. Well, and it's funny because notice that it's almost like we're shaking. It's like that shimmer. You know, it makes me think of on the road when it's really hot and you look down, you have that visual.
Mirage.
Yeah, the mirage of the water, the shimmering coming off the road.
Yep.
It's like we're shimmering. Like it's like we're in and out. We're back. Like we're at this different level of um of vibration, but we're sort of straddling both, right? So we've had what at the Gaia level, here's the thing to pay attention to. We've had animals suddenly show up that have been extinct for a long time.
Right. They just, yeah, they were just somewhere and now they're back.
And or we're catching up to them.
True. Very true.
That's the way I sort of
that's
see it, is
another
we're catching up to
that's
them
another
vibrationally,
perspective.
like in
Right.
the way you're talking about, right?
Right. We
So
caught
it's
up
like,
to them.
so yeah, I see Michael says the threshold of acceptance of change has increased. That would be an understatement, right?
Right.
Especially in the past year and a half. So look at how we've set ourselves up to push ourselves into a place of extreme change on a constant, on a constant level.
Right. Because who would have ever thought all the schools would close? No one. No matter what happened, there'll be school. I mean, everything to just shut down and everybody stay home. Never going to happen.
Right. And it's such a completely different way. So, how do we, and I just feel like, and it's not like, it's not changing back. It's moving forward even faster. Right. Which is what, we've been talking about sort of offline, is like, oh my God, it doesn't feel like it's slowing down. It feels like it's getting more and more intense.
Right. Absolutely.
And I don't even like using the word intense. I like thinking of the word just accelerated, even more accelerated.
Mhm.
Intense is how we decide to experience it.
Yeah, that's a judgment as well.
And that's the whole thing, is when we say things like that, we're in such habits. Well, that's intense. That's so sad. That made me sad. And whenever I think that or hear that, like when I've been looking at that a lot myself, like whenever I'm sad about something changing, it's because I'm attached to it as it was, not because it's necessarily a sad thing. It just is what I'm attached to.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, that's so big. I just feel like I want to sit in that for a
Yeah, I
couple of
experienced
minutes.
that a lot, having a lot of company in the house and the house full over the weekend. And then as you all left slowly, it was like I just felt the sadness, and it's like it was my attachment to, oh, this is how things are now.
Yeah.
And then, oh, now they're different.
Now they're different again. Right.
Now they're different again. And it was like, I can definitely see that being just attached to that, how it is, and the resistance to the changing.
Well, because every time we get to a how it is that we're happy with, then we get attached to it. And the ego wants to glom on and say, this,
This
I
is
want to keep.
good. This is good.
I like
Right.
this better. Right.
Right.
Which is a judgment. Michael says it's that mix between anticipation and working through the mix of intensity for change, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I was a little bit, yeah, because what we flew in Friday night and then flew home. We got home and we were home by dinner last night. It was,
Right. Right.
and I feel like it felt like it was like 5 days in there. It was only like 36 hours.
Yes, it did.
So I'm like, okay, so there was a lot of, and then what I got with that, it was funny because I was sort of looking at that last night. What I got with that was get used to it.
Right. Right.
Enjoy the moment, be there, and then be gone.
Right. Yeah. I had looked forward to this for so long, and it's one of those things where it's like my mother used to say, well, that now I have to make the next thing to look forward to get me through to the next thing. And it's like, but if that's all we're ever doing, that's amazing. Is just experiencing that one awesome on the next awesome on the next awesome on the next awesome.
Right? Which is next week. Well, we'll be on retreat together next week. With some close soul family, which will be great. But yeah, and I look at that because I was looking at that going, it's breathless. Like, and that's what I keep on saying is I am literally breathless between now and February.
Right. Right.
Like I have one thing after another, after another, after another. And it's like, and we're not used to having that. And it started for me. It's like, I don't know. It's been going on for me for a while now. Like, and it seems to be amping up.
Mm-hmm.
And, and you and I are like, well, let's talk about our plans and our retreats and stuff that we want to do for next year. And it's like, when we have 5 minutes.
Right. Exactly.
While we're still finishing the course, the program that we're doing and getting that ready to even, do more stuff on it next year. And it's just, and it's all awesome stuff. And then there's this other stuff all around it. And I feel like that's the way collectively we're going too. So it's not going to slow down anytime soon. And it's not a matter, and it really is a testament to pushing ourselves to not attach to the now.
Right. Right.
To be completely present and completely happy in it. It's funny because I was like scrolling through a community board that I belonged to last night that I hadn't looked at all weekend since I'd been away. And somebody was talking about somebody who had died unexpectedly. Like somebody I knew, like their brother's best friend was there talking to them and literally in the middle of the conversation just died. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like, happening more and more these days, saying
It is.
And like my first response, like I was looking at it and what I wanted to say was, well, good for him, because when he was done, he was gone. That was it.
Right. And there was no hoopla.
Right. No
I'm out.
No, so yeah. Peace out.
Right. Right.
But then there was a whole discussion about like being present and being in gratitude for now. I'm like, totally. And that's what we're pushing ourselves to doing. Being in the present, being in complete gratitude for now. And that's the same thing at the earth level. That's the same thing at these beautiful places that we call like earth chakras and energy vortexes and nature. You know, it
Well,
could
and I
be,
mean, even like a lot of the like natural bridges and things like that are collapsing
yeah,
in extreme weather, whether it's wind or whether it's ocean or whatever, and they're collapsing. And it's funny because they want to blame something.
yeah.
And then by the end of the whole big article or whatever, it says, yeah, it was just time.
Well, the bridges and things like that get created through nature, through
Right.
the passage of time and the water and the wind and everything else. So they're going to continue
That
on,
process. Right.
and one's going to go away and another one's going to be created. And,
Right. Right.
so, so, I don't feel like, at an earth level, I don't think Gaia cries about it. I think it just is
Oh
what,
no.
just a part of how we've created ourselves in this set of dimensions that make up the hologram of the earth, and how we've
Right.
decided to let it comes back to this thing, and it's sort of it's funny, it's a skeevy thought, that because I remember it sort of, and because it ties back to this weekend, you discovering that little wasp nest inside your lantern.
Right.
Made me think of, at my old house one time, I was out in the backyard and there was this eave in this corner that you just don't tend to walk around very much or whatever. And I was standing there and I'm like, what is that? And there was a wasp nest that was like, it was like this big, and it looked like it was moving
Oh, I bet.
because there were so many
Oh my
wasps.
God.
Yeah. And it was cool and gross to me at the same time, right?
Yeah. Intimidating.
Intimidating. And we got rid of we killed it. We got rid of it. But and I was sad about it. I was sad about getting rid of it. But then I was like, yeah, I don't know how big that's gonna get if I leave it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And but it's almost like what comes to mind is like that is the representation of the earth with all the stuff moving around
Roiling.
it, in
Yeah.
it, but that's what creates, and we all create that together, right?
Right.
And there's a part of us that despises it. There's a part of us that loves it.
Oh, absolutely.
And
And
there's
I
a part
think
of us that loves to despise it because we created it to be in this muckety muck of separation and density that we've created.
right. Right. And I think as we come to that more of a place of acceptance and letting go and allowing it, I don't know, it makes the ride better, in my opinion.
That's what we believe, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can choose to believe. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. That's what we can choose to believe. We can choose to believe that it's better to suffer, or we could choose to believe that it's more fun
True. I
to move
guess it
on.
all depends on your preference.
I personally am tired of the big mountains, not the big mountains in physicality, but the big mountains of obstacles that we've created.
True. True.
But at the same time, we say that, but then look at how much we love the physical mountains.
Right. Right.
I mean, who can look away? The first time I ever saw a tornado in person, I couldn't look away from it. It was incredible and awe-inspiring. And
Right. Well, and I mean, you look at a hurricane from a satellite picture.
yeah,
Wow. I mean, the size and the rotation and the eye wall, and they get into to dissecting it. And then,
yeah.
you've got the cameras in the middle of it. And I mean, it's that intense sensation.
It's like, oh, look at what we created.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, people that just specialize in hurricanes and in tornadoes and like severe weather and stuff like that. I mean, I can see that fascination. I can see
Oh,
that because
right.
wow,
Well, it's
because
like the Facebook group that I am a member of, that's Storm Junkies, where they post pictures of storms. And I mean, the clouds and how the wind sculpts them is phenomenal.
And how much we talk about, like, sometimes the sunrises are even better when there's a whole bunch of clouds because of the
The
contrast.
air, the dirtier the air, the prettier the sunrise or
Yeah.
sunset.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The bigger because it's the bigger the contrast and the colors and all that kind of stuff. So we
Right.
love the vibrancy of that
Right.
contrast. So the
Yes, we
question then
do.
is, all right, you know, and at some point, like I said, I can say that, but when I was getting 7 Yahtzees in a row, I was like, well, this isn't that much fun. And I
Right.
had to stop myself going, but it is. Because look at, I know I just did that. I just
Right.
created that. And it was like that, it took like one more game. So, a couple minutes to come in. So that's what we're doing here. And if you think about that, okay, what if we look about that at that reflection from the collective external of Earth itself, Gaia,
Right.
to the
Right.
individual, right? And think about what I just said. We might be done saying we're done with having the mountainous obstacles, but
Mhm.
we cry because the glaciers are falling away.
Right.
Well, what is that representation? Is that we're sad to have them go away.
Absolutely. Because it's a that tactile representation of this separation.
Yeah. And then it's I just had this big breath because I feel like that was a big collective sigh at ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then you get caught between, it's like, okay, so then what happens? And I'll say personally, I don't like areas, like I'm not a big fan of areas that are really flat. Like there's some beauty to that, but then it's like, oh, that's boring. There's no eye candy, right?
Right.
I
Right.
like the ocean. I like the mountains. I like both, preferably together if I can have it, that kind of thing. Because
With the forest right there,
yeah, the redwood forest, yeah.
the big trees,
Yes,
not just the regular trees.
yeah, the big monster ones. And then you think, wow, because then, and look at what I'm saying then. Am I like that in my life? Do I really just want the mountains and the ocean and nothing because do we find that boring? And then the people who, oh, I've never connected that before. And the people who prefer to live in like a flat area or whatever and avoid the mountains and ocean and stuff like that, is that because they're too afraid of having the conflict? Like they're sort of like in a holding
Right.
pattern, afraid to face the conflict and whatever that gets you out of this density.
I think that's
Ooh.
entirely possible.
Wow, that's a big thing to look at, right?
Right.
So what if things like the water drying up, or at the meadows or at the springs or whatever, what if it's
the snow cap totally melting?
the snow cap totally melting? What if it's just, we're done with that?
Right. Right.
Let it go.
And instead of just looking at we're done with that, it's like, what's next?
Yeah.
Because there is something next.
Yes, there is. There always is. Michael says goes into the wider topic of being attracted to situations and things to conquer. Oh, yes. Exactly.
Absolutely. It's that need for external propulsion.
Right. And yeah, conflict.
Motivation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like the friction, the love of the friction and the challenge, the love of the pretending we have a challenge. Oh, that just puts so much clarity on stuff that, it's like a part of me wants to just go sleep with that for about a week now.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So on that, what should we do for our session today?
Maybe it's just that, gain that expanded sense of what change actually is.
in a place of acceptance. And there's something in there about the art of letting go. That's what comes to me, like the art of letting go, on how to let go, and to say, what if the mountains were gone tomorrow? What if the colors were gone tomorrow? What if, one by one, we start breaking down all of what we created in senses and separation to come back to, or to move, not come back to, but to shift into,
Right. Allow
the shifting into what's next. Maybe the clarity on how to do that within ourselves, or getting ready to do that within ourselves, to get to such a place of presence that we can let go of every moment in its entirety to accept whatever is next.
That feels good.
Yeah. That made my back go all tingly.
All right.
So everybody knows we do. Everybody close your eyes, take a deep breath, open your heart as we step out of separation and to wholeness and oneness. And we hold ourselves at the vibration where this is our truth. This is from where we exist, experience, and create. All right. Oh, that was pretty clarifying for me. You know what I saw? I haven't thought about these in forever. Remember Jawbreakers?
Mhm.
And I don't know if they do this still, or it was a particular kind of have when I kid, but there is a kind that I used to get at the candy store when I was a kid, back when we had candy stores,
Right, right.
that when you sucked on them, they turn colors as you got to
Yeah.
different layers, right?
Yep. Yep.
And the bigger the better, because you had more layers of color, right?
The longer it would last.
And the longer it would last. And I saw that and it was like, that's basically what we're doing, is like, it's almost like we set it up that way, but then we get attached to every layer. So then it's like, well, wait, no, I want to hold on to this layer, of
Right.
separation. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, right? Look at that representation, right? And it's like, but then you never get to the next layer if you hold on to this one too much.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So then it was like, okay, so suck away.
Right. Literally.
Yeah,
Maybe
literally.
dissolve away.
Dissolve away. Well, right. And then I saw a bunch of things in my personal purview of like letting go of like different that were powerful. And it was almost like just seeing it allowed it to just go. But then it was like, there's more behind it. And I just kept on seeing other kinds of representations, like in some movie or show I watched recently, it was like they had discovered that like behind a wall, like it was like there were several layers of different wallpapers to get down to like,
right.
And it's like, oh, that's all we're doing. And so what when you do that, say like with a painting, right? Because sometimes you have one painting over another.
Yeah.
You have to go through the process. And in this reality, we've chosen to go through the process of destroying one layer to get to the next, however that looks.
Yep.
So that's how the destroying of it is the choice of how we do it. Like, can we dissolve it away as easy as a jawbreaker?
Right.
So we can enjoy the next thing, or are we going to make it hard and clunky and part of the game? So I was like, oh, that's such an easy way to see it. Then I was like, oh, now I need to sit with that all week.
Right. Yep.
Leading up to having a retreat group next week after we have our
deep dive retreat.
Then retreat. Yes.
Right.
Wow. All right. Well, that was surprisingly personal for going to that collective level, but it's no difference. There's no difference.
Awesome.
Yeah. How about you? Did you see anything different? Anything else?
It was like I went back to where I'd been all night last night, which was just so busy and so busy, but at the same time, just letting go, which is a different kind of busy.
Right.
So it's almost like air traffic control. Okay, we let go of this. We keep this, but we keep it differently. And it was kind of that sorting business.
Right. Well, that was a really good topic.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome.
All right, everyone. So sit with that this week and look at where you're having struggles in your life or whatever, or some conflict or obstacle, and decide to just either accept it as it is because you love the obstacle and the suffering or challenge to get through it, or let it go and let go of the attachment to it as making us valuable or a more valuable experience and whatever. And that's deep. If we can do that, that'll just facilitate stuff so much more quickly.
Right.
So, all right, everyone. On that, we're going to let you go. Have a great week. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni
signing off with this week's Ascended World. Have a good one.